All right, so let's get started today. I wanted to cover how to block. I have not done a video like that in a while. And I thought it's time for me to cover that once again. You guys are having a lot of trouble blocking. Quick thing, please don't upload tiny little resolution images as WebP files on the subreddit. Please, for the love of God, don't upload screenshots where I can still see the mouse. All right, this is automatically a D. All right, D minus, because I can see that. All right, please upload decent sized paintings for me, and to upload them as JPEGs, please. Upload them as JPEGs. Don't upload them as WebP. Make my life easier as I make your life easier. Before I get started, some quick little tiny announcements. There's nothing really going on in the community, so no challenges. Portrait Studio and my brushes and everything on my store is on sale. And if you guys want to learn how to submit your work for critique, like this is work that's been submitted, how do you get your work up here too? You just go to istebrak.com, click on the subreddit icon right here. That will take you to my subreddit where you can submit your work for critique. This is where I picked up this piece. Okay, so I'm going to talk about blocking, and specifically because this person asked about blocking. But I wonder why they asked about blocking specifically, and not the elephant in the room, which is their inability to measure. Why aren't you measuring? Do you feel like you can just, eyeball it, just kind of fake it till you make it type situation? No, you can't. You can't fake it till you make it with measuring, because measuring, you got to make it to make it. Meaning that there is nothing that will substitute measuring. What will happen, what's happening in your mind is like, hey, I've seen other artists eyeball stuff. I can do it too. No, you didn't. You are mistaken. You didn't see other artists eyeball stuff. You saw other artists eyeball stuff after years of measuring, to the point where they learned how to see the lines in their mind's eye. They literally have this like Iron Man helmet. What are those, like the blueprints? What are they? The schematics. Like you have like a schematic lens in your mind. In your mind's eye, and you can see it in your eyes, like it's just right there. It's literally a lens that you have where you can just pick up on all the lines and schematics under everything, because you've done it for so long. So right now I see lines. I see a lot of lines, and only because I measured with lines for so freaking long. The same thing will happen to you. You can't find a shortcut. There is no evolution stone or little evolution moonstone thing that'll make you evolve without any of the necessary training. So there is no substitute for the mileage that you need in order to learn how to measure. This is why your piece looks a little bit like a caricature, a little bit uncanny, a little bit silly in certain areas, because you took what is the memory. So like right now, imagine this guy, forget this guy's name. Imagine this actor in your mind right now without any references. This is kind of what you'd see in your mind. A very like distorted view, a version of the original photo, right? So you're drawing, you're eyeballing, the only thing it's revealing to us is how you've generalized his characteristics. So your question of today is not blocking. In fact, the lesson has nothing to do with blocking. Blocking is not your current skill level, and blocking is not the question of the day, okay? Because blocking is about form. This is about likeness and anatomy. Measurement, likeness, and anatomy is right now your biggest issue. And in fact, you blocked sort of okay. You saw at least like half the canvas was bright. I mean, half the portrait was bright and half the portrait was dark. You picked up on that. You picked on some characteristics, but I wouldn't be able to know if this was this actor had I just seen this without the reference. It looks like just kind of like a generalized Asian eye. It just looks like a very general Asian man. Doesn't feel like we're looking at this guy whose name I forgot. Adrian Brody. Okay. So let's talk about how to measure, and hopefully if there's enough time, we can talk about how to block better. But for now, let's just focus on the measurement. So measurement is, it doesn't care about your opinion of it. Measurement does not have a wrong answer. Measurement doesn't have a style to it. Do you guys understand what I'm trying to say? Measurement is objective. Measurement can be relied upon. You guys write that back to me. What does that mean? It means that if all you did was measure right and get the anatomy down, even if your form is trash, it will still look like a decent drawing. Because the likeness and the familiarity carries a lot. And that's why so many people, because that is essentially true, so many people lean into it too hard and make an imbalanced, line-dependent view of, okay, yeah, lines are all I need to do, and I just need to understand anatomy. Not true. Form is extremely important. But right now, from our current vantage point, if we were to flatten the form, the only thing that's making this look like Adrian Brody, all these pixels of this camera, is the relativity of these features to each other. So let's make some simple lines. There's the symmetry line, and there are the horizontal symmetry lines. Let's track down what we can see. All right, so off the bat, did you do this? No, because look at the base of the nose, how far it is from the line of the ears. Look at that. That's a lot of discrepancy. All right, so the horizontal, the vertical symmetry line is great for flipping both sides, and at least you have symmetry. You have some symmetry in yours. But the horizontal symmetry lines are just abysmal. We don't see anything that even resembles this character. And then we're going to draw a couple more lines of relativity. These aren't necessarily straight lines. They're just lines that show us kind of, let's just make them straight for theory's sake before I make them skewed. You can see how the nostrils are right outside the straight line that comes out of each eye corner. And so if we try to do a general straight line coming down, the nostrils are less wide, so the eyes are too far apart. The eyes right now are too far apart. The eyes should be pushed in so that the inner corner sits on the edges of the nostrils, just like we see in the reference. Do you see what's happening? So actually, let me keep those two. The more lines we draw, the more you'll have those, oh my God, what the heck was I thinking moments, okay? And then let's find the corner to corner of the eyes. Corner to corner of the eyes, it's okay. This eye is way higher. This eye is way lower. And at this point, I'm just trying to make this line parallel with this one to the best of my ability. And then we've got, there's so many ways to organize this, but these are the essential ones. The inner corners and how they relate to the nostrils. Let me erase this little area. Okay. And the eye corners and how they relate to the ears, where the ears are placed. We can't see the ears, but I imagine they're slightly higher. And then there's the expression of the eyebrows. You can draw a line for anything where the two, it has to be a straight line though. Remember that the straight line, not straight to your canvas edge, not straight to the Photoshop canvas edge, straight to this original symmetry line that we decided was going to be the reference line. Okay, so the more we look, the more we search, the more we find where you have like extreme discrepancies. Look how tiny this mouth is. That the mouth is as small as the inner corners of the eye, where here his mouth is as wide as the middle point of the eyes. This is a forgotten skill, and a lot of you don't really respect this skill because you think, oh, I'll just learn it on the way. I will just pick this up eventually. I will just eyeball my way towards it. I will just figure it out one day. No, you won't. No, you will not. You will end up with really good form, maybe because you practiced for so long, but you will end up with anatomy that's weird in a way. People will notice it and it'll stick out like a sore thumb. So measurement is not wasted time. Write that back. Measurement is not wasted time. Measurement is a skill you have to develop. Measurement is one of the most essential fundamentals to learn. Not fundamentals in theory, fundamental technique, meaning foundation technique. Okay? Measuring is a foundation technique. Measuring is a foundation technique. You have to know how to measure. And if you don't learn the long way, you won't be able to eyeball it or do the short way. You have to take the long way. You have to take this extra. How long did this take? I mean, at the end of the day, we're arguing about the 10 minutes it took for me to do these lines. But that's only because I was explaining them as I was doing them. How long have I been, talking about the lines? Like, if I really just actually timed the amount of time it took to draw each line, if I actually timed it, it would be less than a minute. That's all I'm asking for, is just a minute of extra measurement. And it changes the entire image. So I'm going to apply these measurements here, and then we're going to see how your piece holds up form-wise. So if we are to think about it in layers, the anatomy happens as soon as your first block. The measurement happens as soon as your first block. So if you are not measuring, what are you blocking? And if you're blocking freehand and eyeballing the measurements, you're going to have flaws. You're going to make a lot of errors. So what's the order? Well, for a professional, they can do whatever they want. They've done it so many times. But for a beginner, and you are a beginner, and at least measurements you are a beginner, what you have to do is step out of the beginner stage. Y'all think that beginner is like a permanent identity you have to stick with. No, it's not. Beginner just means for now you don't know this thing. You're a beginner at it. You just began it. But once you began it and the beginning is done, then you are no longer a beginner. You are now intermediate. You're moving into medium or early intermediate. So as long as you've put in, like, let's say 10 hours of measurement, you've left beginner. You've left beginner in the dust. You're done. You're done being a beginner. Beginner isn't a permanent identity you're stuck with for life. Beginner will only stick around as long as you are too afraid to try the thing you're supposed to try, whatever fundamental it might be in knowledge or theory or fundamental in technique. All right? So you being a beginner is actually up to you. You decide how long you're going to stay a beginner. All right? So let's apply these measurements, which is a lot. I mean, this isn't some easy thing to do. You've made a ton of mistakes when it comes to it. So I'm going to try my best to apply these changes here today. So I'll duplicate the layer, and I will do it in two ways. I'll have one where everything is merged together. And that way, on my liquify, I have my lines available to me. So let's liquefy this bitch. So the first thing I'm going to do, what's the first change? Well, the first change I made was the ears. The ears were really, really important. And then the first thing I'm going to do is actually just orient the head in the right direction, because your head was just a little bit straight and head on. So that's another thing you threw, another wrench in your development, is you change the orientation of the head so that we have, you have even less control and less familiarity with what's happening from your reference. So we fixed that. Let's move forward. So the first thing I changed, or the first thing I found, the first line I found was the ears. All right, so I'm ignoring everything else right now. Do not be overwhelmed. Do your best to just chill out, follow the first line. Measurement is not hard. What makes it hard is the way you think about lines and think about measurement. You think, oh, I'm doing art. What the hell? Why am I using a protractor and whatnot? This was supposed to be art. It wasn't supposed to be about measurement. It was supposed to be about feeling free, or of all the things to pick to feel free, you picked art. I mean, like realism art? Really? You have so many rules, and I mean not that many, but a lot of rules compared to like abstract art. So of all the practices to pick, you pick the one that is like the most arduous when it comes to how many, like, you know, layers you have of physics and form and knowledge and anatomy. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of science in this. We're talking about a human head. There's a lot of science goes into a human head. So, you know, maybe you just don't want to do realism. Maybe you are up for the challenge. You're just not aware of how challenging this challenge is. But again, these are general terms. It's not actually that challenging to get liquefy and just nudge things over. It's not that challenging to just draw a straight line from section to section. Do you see what I'm saying? The challenge here is just you fighting yourself. You just arguing with yourself about whether or not this is something that's going to be done. And it's kind of in the way, and you're like, but I want to get straight into the paint. I don't really want to sit here measuring. I'm in the mood. I'm in the mood for drawing. I'm not in the mood for lines. And that's the kind of way you guys con yourselves out of learning the most essential fundamental techniques. Don't con yourself out of good skill. And you do that by talking yourself out of the necessary devotion you need to the craft. By thinking that the study is a hindrance to the craft. Measurement and finding lines is not a hindrance to your artistic process. It amplifies it. It makes it better. It gives you more results. It gives you more satisfaction because you are getting results, and getting results is something that's wonderful because then you love your job even more and you love the craft even more, and it feels more fulfilling and it feels more like you really did do the thing that you set out to do. So measurement is not here to make you fail. Ignoring measurement will cause the failure. And you will see in the before and after this bigger picture of failure that I'm referring to. His eyes are so much bigger, his pupils. And that's his like most beautiful feature, are his deep set eyes. And you have completely given us like these almost cartoony dots on either side of his face, either for either eye. And I'm not really sure where you saw that, where you picked it up. Maybe it's a style choice, but he's got gigantic eyes. And they're so beautiful, really easy to draw. His eyes are like artist-friendly eyes. They're just there. They just keep giving. So they've got great wrinkles. They've got deep set eye sockets for the radial shading. Beautiful block for the lower eyelid, a little eye bag there, big eye, pupil and iris, plenty of lashes, a very visible lash line, strong inner corner. This is the artist, this is the eye to study if you want to study eyes, but you seem to have ignored most of these little indicators. And so I'm going to zoom all the way out and see if I can figure out some scale issues. So the eyes need to be brought closer together. So now I'm thinking about the horizontal lines as well. And then I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about the expression. And then there's the lifting of the eyebrow. The eyebrows try to get out of the way when you look at stuff. So this eyebrow, because it's on the side of the eyes that are looking, this in the side of the direction the eyes are looking, this eyebrow is trying to just nudge out of the way. And this eyebrow is doing that other kind of lifting as well. And then there's the wideness of the face. And I'm just darting my eyes back and forth and trying to see if there's anything else I can do to on the liquefy stage to help us along. So there's like the cheekbone area right here, and it kind of slides down. And then there's the width of the mouth. And then if there's some time, we can talk about blocking. There's that far eye. So let's take a look at what a little bit of measurement did for the likeness. So before, after, before, after, before, after. And the rest is all just that really, really safe, bit of, you know, like that safe style of using values. Your values are very, very washed out. And then I think he has a much wider jaw, very big jaw, smaller. His mouth is small, but it's not as small as before. And I want to just make sure his jaw is nice and wide. But it's hard to see it because it's disappearing into the far side. Right, so before, after, before, after. We're nearing the likeness a lot closer. Of course, there is still a couple more issues. So there's the sleepiness of his eyes. I'm just trying to get as much stuff out of the way as possible in Liquify to save myself time later. I think his sleepy eyes really do define his eyes as well. So I'm taking these measurements back. And now I'm going to think about just the blocking and all that other stuff. So I don't know if I have time to try to block in this entire man's face. But I'll do my best. So we've got a big block right there and another block for the lower eyelids, a block for the lower eye. So now what we're doing is we are identifying the zones, creating limitations, imagining that the head is this low poly 3D model. You over brighten the far nostril, even if it's bounce light. Don't brighten it outside of the range or like the limits. I'm completely darkening this dark side. And I'm just finding where all of these major block zones are. Even if it's a mess, even if it creates a mess, eventually you'll shrink your brush to such a level that you will clean up the mess. All right, so don't be afraid to block in. All you have to do is pick the right size brush and within reason, so a general size to the brush, and you have to pick the right value. Blocking does not mean detailing. Blocking eventually leads to detailing. Okay, and then there's that little bit of a smile. So if you're having issues knowing where to block, you are allowed to do this. Okay, there are many things you are allowed to do. The first one is the pixelation. Oopsie. The first one is the pixelation. You are allowed to pixelate, filter, pixelate, mosaic. This helps you avoid the values that are detail values and focus on the larger values. You are allowed to Gaussian blur, filter, blur, Gaussian blur to help you identify where the general ranges are. Your brain doesn't know how to manage this much detail, so you panic and do all kinds of crazy crap like line dependence, contrast, being overwhelmed, detailing too early. There are so many things that are a bad reaction to an overabundant information from a reference. So what do? Just interrupt the flow of information from the reference. Is this not easier to reference for you? Put your hand up if you find this a lot easier, right? So pick one. Which one do you feel like works for you? The one that's pixelated. Eventually you'll turn this off and start using the original full resolution. But not before you made sure that you understood it at that most space level, which is just the neighborhoods of values. Okay, so this isn't just me giving you a tip. This isn't just a tip. This isn't just oh, you may benefit from this if you do it. I benefit from this and I'm your teacher. I do this and I'm your teacher. This isn't just a quick tip. This is a very, very important thing to do in your process so that you limit the amount of self-sabotage that may happen. You limit the amount of panic that may happen. So when you're using a reference and you feel like, okay, this reference is too, there's no such thing as a reference that's too difficult. You're just not mediating the information coming out of that reference gracefully. Like you're just kind of just jumping into it and hoping and hacking and slashing. You're not just kind of taking your time. So we're going to use this one to give us just a general idea, just so I can show you what I see. What I usually do, I don't do these as much as I used to when I was a student. I still am a student. I zoom out, or I squint my eyes. Squinting your eyes is like doing this really quickly. But if you feel like squinting your eyes is something you don't want to do for any reason, or you just feel like you want to do the other type, that's good too. But we'll do this one so you can see how easy it is to work with this. And so we go back here, we see this big triangle. See that big triangle right here? We're just going to duplicate that triangle. You can go on darken if you don't want to interrupt values. There's a bunch of shadow coming out of the eye area. There's a strong lash line. And there's a pretty big upper eyelid space, because it's his face, so his eyes are very sleepy looking all the time. Not because he's sleepy, but because he's got really, really deep set eyes. There's not a lot of fat stored in his eye sockets. And so we get to see more of the upper, his eyeball, and the eyelids wrapped around that eyeball. And then there's the shadow of that area. And then, yeah, his biggest feature is the nose, but it's like the least renderable feature here. It's not even the biggest feature art-wise, because it's just a lot of my brain is completely blanking. What is the term? A lot of surface area. And that surface area is just it's just that there's nothing to paint in surface area that's blank. All right, so there's that shadow. He's looking all the way on the other side. There's a bit of a light right here. And then we've got a lot of shadow on his mouth. And then there's that deeper cavity of his open mouth. And then there's a bit here. And it's looking more and more like the pianist. And then there's also the background value. What the heck? Your very reference is giving you a different background value, but you went with this extremely white value that was going to completely just destroy your values eventually. It's going to sabotage them. So we got rid of that. And then I'm just going to give us some stronger blocks for the hair, because that helps you establish values as well. You're referencing everything off relativity. So if you have a nearby big block of black, it's going to help you understand what's happening on every other level. And then I'm just going to do this. Just watch what I'm doing. Just straight up dragging a huge block down the middle of the face. That's how much you have to respect the core shadow. I'm going to do it again. We're not quite as dark as we need to be. And then we're going to do that, and then we're just going to taper some of it around the forehead since it's a flat area. And then by this point you're like, oh no, it's messy. Oh no, it's this. Oh no, it's that. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is how loyal you have been to this reference. And not just that, how loyal you have been to the physics, the light source, the form, and they will reward you. If you are loyal to them, they will reward you. Every decision we made is a decision of loyalty to the light source and the anatomy and all of the sciences. So now we have this like really strong foundation. One to one, we're representing everything that's happening on a physical scale here. And then I'm just really quickly going to add in the rest of his outfit, just so we have those points of reference. And then that way I can get the proper jaw shape coming through. Okay, and then it's almost right at his ear. So all these landmarks, these kind of markers, you're always looking at the reference for that And then I'm just gonna mess up his hair a bit. And I'm gonna fix the features one more time. I think our eyes are a bit too big, and the head is a bit too big. But also our version is bigger because the reference is small. And I'm just gonna shrink the eyes down a touch. Oops. That's definitely him. And now we can turn off this reference and start moving into the deeper detail. All right, so now you have no disorientation. Now you have a lot more control. Now you can go in and bring in all of those little extra detail points. And you do this enough, you revisit the painting enough, eventually it just comes together. But you have to respect the rules in place here. I mean, I could use my pencil, or I could use my blocker. All right, and we have a couple more little extra pockets. So now you're finding the smaller neighborhoods of dark and light within these little larger neighborhoods we just established. So blurring the canvas helps you establish the larger neighborhoods, and unblurring it helps you find those smaller ones. But you can't find the smaller ones without knowing what the bigger ones were. And then we have a little eye socket shadow right here. And all those extra little things that you guys are mentioning right now in the chat, this is not that, this is not that, that can be done later. Remember that you don't want to talk like that while you're painting from a reference. The only thing you are focused on is the bigger picture when you're blocking. You are not focused on the little things you could be fixing, because you start fixing a little thing, you're going to get lost fixing that little thing. So stop thinking like, oh, this needs to be done and that needs to be done and this needs to be figured out. Do not think like that while painting. The bigger picture is the only thing that matters. While we're zoomed out, what is our concern? So can anyone summarize what I did today? All right, and there's a nice big bounce light block right under his eyebrows. I mean, this man is so paintable. And then there's the rest of his cheekbones there. Happy New Year, Thunguns bro. Thunguns bro. So what did I do? Can anyone give me like a quick step-by-step of what I did for all of these changes? So this kind of looks like a smile. And then we've got a block for the mustache, a very gentle mustache. And then we've got the chin. And I don't want to liquefy that. I think I'll just paint that in. And there's that shadow of the neck area. There's a little bit of a line shadow right under, right here. Gammon. And then there is a deeper pocket. So you remember that block I added? So now I'm adding a smaller block and then a smaller block in there. All of that, that's how that's blocking. You're creating worlds within worlds of blocks, but only with the blocking brush. Why do we block? Because it helps us understand the substructure of form so that we can put paint down efficiently, and we can also simultaneously identify the edges, because the edges are the only thing left over once the line is kicked out. So blocking is this great solution. Hey, we can think about the form, think about the edges, add detail, and not have to use the blending and not have to worry about blending even one time. And then we've got that little bounce light line. That's way too light. That little bounce light line on the far side of his cheek right there. And I don't have his exact likeness to his mouth, but it's close enough for a demonstration. And then we've got a really strong Cupid's bow. And a very strong shadow. Again, one block within a block within a block until you get to where you want to be. And then there's his nostrils, which are very, very downward facing. They're very easy to draw. They're just different. And one side of his nose is off to the side. So one side is fixed and the other, kind of one side faces forward and the other faces to the side. I really respect this actor for not getting a nose job. And then a bit of bounce light there. Okay, and then we've got the rest of the nostril right there. And then we've got the Terminator line that runs down the middle of his nose. And then we've got the shadow of the septum, which is like just a little blob. And then we've got a bit of brightness right under the nose, right here, sliding under the nose, creating this overlap edge. And it kind of just hugs the nostril there until we get that laugh line. See all these little details I didn't even think about earlier because I wasn't worried about them. And then we've got a little bit more. So like if I had time, I'd be going into this a lot more with a lot more focus. But we are closer now than we were before to getting the exact likeness. And then now we can smudge. And smudging really, it seems like that's where the magic happens, but smudging only feels magical because the blocking did so much work. And so now I'm smudging. And I'm finding all these areas that need to be smudged. And I'm smudging comfortably. We're chilling. And I'm smudging with a smaller brush around this area. And yeah, my version is just a little bit more of like a caricature, I guess. I would want it to be perfect. You guys know me when I draw portraits. I really try to push the readability and the likeness a lot. But of course, I have 20 minutes left. So I usually spend hours on these, but this is what I can do. So do you guys feel like you are less afraid of using reference now? And then I'm just throwing in a little block right here, just in between the eyes. And continuing the smudging wherever I can. This is my smudge brush from my store. It's currently on sale if you guys are interested in getting the exact brushes I'm using and the exact blocking brush I used today. I love my blocking brush. I literally do not use any other type of blocking brush. I love the amount of texture it gives me. It's the one that I've used for nearly probably every single portrait I've ever done, and the ones that are showcased on my website. It's a reliable brush. It's got a good angle that's versatile for pretty much every block you need to make on the portrait. And again, there's so many little tiny things I'm noticing now, but I want to prioritize the demonstration for the blending and then just make sure that the lesson feels complete today. I don't want to spend too much time on the detailing. And detail isn't just about shrinking your brush, remember that. Detail is about detail in measurements as well. So that you guys have more than enough time to take care of that stuff on your own in your own time. But as long as today made it feel a little bit easier to tackle these types of portraits so that you guys can try new things, try new faces, learn more knowledge. Don't just paint the Barbie doll face forever. There are so many other faces in this world, and they're all amazing. Yeah, learn the template first. Make sure it's not a Barbie doll, though. Make sure it's like enough of a medium in beauty, enough of a medium in the template age wise, and then out of that branch out into using references. But as long as today's class made you feel like, hey, this isn't that hard, and yes, measurement is extremely underrated, and I really need to learn that before I do anything else. So smudging is a method of blending. It doesn't work in Clip Studio. I believe it does. I believe there is a way to make them work. With blending, you focus on going from light to dark. With smudge, it tends to average. Whichever it needed most is what to use. I think I don't know why I'm commenting. I haven't done painting. It's okay. Everyone can speak here. Maybe I need to tweak some settings with it, but it paints like a spray. Works great in Photoshop though. Yeah, I've never used Clip Studio Paint. I've just always been on Photoshop for a while. I'm switching to my pencil brush, and now I'm just addressing those small little points of detail that may be needed. And then there's also the darkness of the white of the eyes. His eyes aren't completely white in this piece. And then there's the gaze and exactly where he's looking. So right now I'm just prioritizing the eye. Remember, most of this was my blocking brush. This was not a pencil brush. Even my pencil brush is great for blocking because it's just got a very no, it's not great for blocking, but it's great to use with blocking because it's got a really similar texture to the blocking brush, so it camouflages nicely. You don't feel like you switched your brush. I love how I'm arguing with myself, like, no, you said it wrong, fix it. And then and I'm just trying to get his eyes. I'm slowly falling in love with this actor. I think I'm gonna study his face soon. This is really fun. And then I'm trying to get that beautiful kind of little pouch of value right there. So the before and after is going to be insane because it's, I mean, there shouldn't even be a before and after because it was so completely different. And it's a completely different approach. It's a completely different set of brush strokes. But I hope you guys are understanding that I'm trying to show you that this is not as mystified as you guys have made it to be. Measuring isn't this secret craft that you got to be born with. You don't have to be born with this talent or something. It's not a talent. You do enough measuring and you get enough of the measurements out of the way. Am I still measuring? I'm asking you guys a question. Am I still measuring? I measured at the start of the hour, right? Around 5:10, 5:15, I was measuring, right? It's 5:45. I'm not measuring anymore. I don't need to because the foundation was built. And so I don't have to measure anymore. That's all it is. It's just 10 minutes. Like, it's 10 minutes of measurement that changes everything about the way about the success, about the probability of success for the illustration, right? I'm not measuring anymore. There's no measuring happening right now. All I'm doing is just bringing over the blocks to this side. I brought this block over. This block right here is getting brought over. The block of his mustache is about to get brought over just like that. And the block of this Terminator line of his chin area is about to get brought over. That's the only thing I'm worrying about. So 5:10 Istebrak took care of 5:46 Istebrak. Do you guys see what I'm saying? They took care of it. And so now I can just breeze through all of the blocking without any fear. These are two skills you have to learn. Blocking is about having faith and not switching your brush to a blending brush and freaking out and thinking you have to start blending because your work isn't looking enough, bubbly enough or jelly enough, or something like that. So you have to not be worried about how it might read if someone were to just walk in the room and ask, what's that blob monster you're drawing? This is my fucking blob monster. That's what you say to them. This blob monster is going to be a beautiful painting one day. You have to love the ugliness of the blocking process, and you have to respect the importance of the measuring process. You cannot skip measuring. There is no substitute. There is no supplement to take for that replaces the need for measurement. There is nothing like that. You have to measure, or just don't bother painting portraits anymore. All right, if you want to learn how to paint from reference, if you feel like references, you look at them and you're just like, you know, not every artist has the reference itch, by the way, right, guys? Not every artist feels the need to work from reference, but I'm one of those artists, and it's an itch. It's crazy. I look at a reference and I'm like, God, I have to capture that somehow. It's got to be mine. Those eyes have to be something I know how to draw. And that's how we pick references. That's how I pick references. I just look at the features and I just have to be a part of that. I have to understand how that happened in the world of light and form. So if you're that type of artist, if you're like me and you really want to be one of the artists that can capture work from reference and just the beauty of form, on the light on form, then you have to learn how to measure. It's part of it. It's part of the whole thing. And so now I'm doing the last little bits here and there. And there's a lot that I would love to keep doing. Measurements of certain areas, the nose, all of that. There's a lot that I need to do. But our version is bigger and we are missing some components here and there. But I'm doing my best to kind of just finish up before the hour is over. I have 10 minutes left. And I'm just now building the smaller worlds within worlds. I gotta blend out the chin. So I'm bringing the smudge brush and I'm just smudging those together. Smudging and blending is the same thing. And butt chin. And then I'm just blending away some things here and there. It's called a cleft chin. The brush economy and is meticulous and slight. Yes, interesting. You don't make a clipping mask to isolate character from background. No, you merge everything together, because that's what you would do if you were just painting with oil paint. And that's how I like to teach. I like to rely less and less, as much as possible, relying less and less on Photoshop tools. But I'm not a Puritan in any way. I have illustrations where I have 50 layers. It's just about this type of study that I don't really like jumping around, because, oh, I got to change layers. Oh, I got to change layers. Oh, I got to change layers. And I keep interrupting the blocking flow. There's a flow state. Once you're in it, things are just amazing and time flies by. And everyone can enter flow state. And so that's what we're doing when we're that's what we're interrupting when you have too many layers and too many effects and too many this and that. And I'm adding the last little just kind of minute placements of pure black, pure black, wherever that may sit, and pure white wherever that may sit. And just finding those little pockets in the nostrils, in the lip corners. Remember the dark spots. What are the 6 dark spots? Can anyone list them out for me real quick? And just right here. A little bit here. And mine feels a bit more caricaturish because I really amplified that job. But I'm okay with that, since that's how I would have done it anyway had it been my painting. I'm adding a couple more like little blocks of value just over here, trying to capture that bounce light just there. I mean that cast shadow. And let's leave it at that for today. It's 5:51, so I'm just going to I wanted to talk about some other paintings today, but I guess that's not gonna happen. And just throwing in some more brights. And now I'm gonna add in the brightest brights. They're not there in the reference. I'm just adding whatever I want, and I'm gonna add them based off where I feel like they would be in this portrait. had the contrast not been limited or diffused by the photographer. And I'm just adding them in those areas I feel like we would really need them. Let me just add a little something else. Okay. And I'm adding that little indentation of his laugh line by his nose. It's really important because it's part of how big his nose is, that it just has this little wrinkle beside it at all times. And actually in my liquify, I'm going to exaggerate that nostril and give him kind of like a, give him kind of like a you know that thing he does where he's just lifting one nostril a bit? I feel like that's really, really Adrian Brody. So I'm just going to lift it up that way. And it's not what we see in the reference, but it's somehow it works in the piece here. And I'm just going to make sure that bounce light isn't too bright. Remember, I'm not blending away every last tiny little decimal of texture that came out of my blocking brush. I'm not. I'm keeping a lot of the texture from the brush, and you should too. That super clean airbrush look is not that great. If you want to have a bit of that texture, it's part of the allure of working. It reminds you of working with pencils and oils, and the viewers love it and they eat that shit up. So if you want to get a little bit more, give a little bit more in your photo reference pieces, keep a little bit of that texture. There's always an audience for that. And because the earlobe is very rounded, I don't want to overblock it. I just want it to have a bit of a presence there. And obviously when you see this before and after, it's going to be insane because it's again, not even the same person anymore. But I want to show you how quickly this happened together. And I know I make it look easy, but that's because it is easy. If this was an extremely difficult freaking nuclear reaction quantum physics, I wouldn't be doing this in front of you. This isn't quantum physics, okay? This is just art. And yeah, it's one of the more difficult skills to learn. Hands down, one of the most difficult skills to pick up. But only because we've been programmed to think a certain way that art does not like. And we have to change the way we think about there's a lot of humility that's learned in art, like learning how to just stop, stop trying to express yourself and just learn to respect the form. Like that's insane. That's like you are now paying homage to the world of physics. Now you are like doing you are a servant at the temple of physics. That's like a huge ego drop for a lot of people. It's no longer about you, it's about the physics. Do you see what I'm saying? Art is like, it changes the way you think, it changes the way you are completely. And so like learning how to measure, taking a moment to just slow down, that teaches you a lot of patience as well. So just just remember there's a lot of give and a lot of changing of your personality, which means that not personality like all of it, but like your the bad things that you do. Maybe you're too impatient to measure, but that's the darkest side of art. That's like the hardest side of art. Everything else I did in front of you in less than an hour. And I'm just gonna smudge a little bit more around the eyebrows, because the more smudged they are, the more they feel like hair actually grows there. And I'm being artistic in certain areas. I mean, we know we're looking at him, the actor, but there's something different about my approach to his anatomy than in the reference. And I think that's a good way to work with reference, because it's like this, you bring a little bit of yourself in there. If I had more time, I'd try to get the likeness down a little bit more perfectly. But right now I don't have that kind of time. One more little block for certain areas, and then we are done. Any questions at all about all of this? Okay, so any questions? How to do those forehead wrinkles? So just draw the lines, minimize it. You don't have to do them in the intensity of the photo reference. You don't have, in fact, you should not, because they are not in the focal point. Everything we do that's not focal point, we lower the presence of it. So we reduce them in our version. Do not try to do them one-to-one in the reference. They're too far away from the eye. You'll end up just drawing these really super detailed, and it'll just stick out. It won't feel right. There's a lot of rules we break because we are drawing as if we are looking at the portrait. Again, we are looking at the portrait as if we are seeing it with the naked eye, not with a camera. If Adrian Brody was right in front of you, you'd be looking at his eyes and you'd be seeing his forehead in a really like a blurred periphery vision. So just look at his eyes. Don't move your eyes, but notice the wrinkles. They're very blurry, right? Notice the mouth. Notice the chin. Don't look at them. Just notice them. They're very blurry, but the eyes are full detail. That's how we paint in portraits and art and everything. We always try to reduce the amount of visibility. If you guys do any graphics, how cool is it? I think of the wrinkles as variations in planes. Hope you have a nice day. Okay, so the chat doesn't have any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys you guys are cute. Show you guys the before and after once and for all. Maybe I should fix the nose before I do that. And then move on. So I'm gonna flatten the image, but before I do, so the gist of what I did today was I measured, and oops, you guys saw the before and after. Well, there it is. That was not planned. I did not expect that to happen. I forgot that the lower layer was okay. So before, after, different, completely different. Oh my gosh, this completely fucked up my class, but that's okay. It was my fault. It's a question, but also unrelated. How am I doing? I'm doing okay. I'm a little embarrassed right now. So the main ideas of today is that we can't enter the flow of blocking without measuring first. And so the most important things to do are to interrupt the amount of over detail, like the extreme amount of detail coming out of your reference, by pixelating, blurring, whatever you've got to do. And then once you know you have a good bed of measurements, you've had enough help from these assistants, like these tricks that you can use. Not tricks, what's the friggin' word? Like you've organized the process and approach enough that you cannot fail. The measurements make sure you can't fail, and the pixelation and the interruption of the detail, of the overflow and overabundance of detail, both ensure success. So that's not a trick. It's not like a quick tip that you can use. These are extremely important techniques. These are techniques, okay? A trick makes it seem like a cheap little 5-minute video on YouTube. No, these are solid, reliable techniques, all right? And measuring is not optional. It's not a technique. At this point, measuring is just how the world works, all right? So before, very, very different, because you weren't measuring. You ended up with a completely different person. And the background was extremely bright. It was just a white background. Your reference was literally telling you what background value to use. You ignored it. Why? Because you guys are line dependent. You remember the little sketchbook paper that's white, and you just copy the sketchbook paper value, and you think, okay, I can just put white. Even the sketchbook paper is not white, it's gray. It just looks white to you. It's actually a nice kind of, it's not glowing. This is a literal glow color, and it's just too bright. It's the whitest white that Photoshop can give you. And then after, we did a lot of steps to get to this point. Measuring, blocking, making sure that we're interrupting our reference. We used a reference that was pixelated to help us create huge summarizing brush strokes that created really, really reliable, clean cut zones of shadow and light, so that we get a nice balance working from the reference. And after that, we unpixelated it and started to do the detail, because it was time to do the detail. We had a great bed. of blocking. Okay, now I need a sip of water. Any questions at all before I close up the stream? Okay, let's read. What are my personal art goals this year? That's such a big question. I think just do more personal art. Just more art in general, like more volume of art. There's no specific like style I want to do or anything like that. I just want to do more art. Okay, so to submit your work for critique, all you guys have to do is go to istebrak.com. You can find all the links here. So you can find the subreddit link. This is where I found today's piece for critique. But that's the subreddit. If you guys want to get my brushes from today that you saw me use, just go to my store tab on istebrak.com. All my brushes are here. Bye guys. I'll see you guys next class. Bye.